Welcome to the channel Nomis Treasure Hub. What if I told you that the change jangling in your pocket right now could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past coins every single day, spending them on coffee, parking meters, or vending machines, never realizing that one simple quarter could be worth more than their entire house, their car, and their life savings combined. Today, we're diving deep into the world of rare Washington quarters, and trust me, you're going to want to check every single coin you own after watching this, because what I'm about to reveal will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about 1997p Washington quarter, and before you think, oh, that's just a regular quarter from the 90s, nothing special, let me stop you right there, because this particular coin has sold for a staggering $43 million. Yes, you heard that right. $43 million for a quarter that most people would use to buy a gumball without thinking twice. Now, before we dive into exactly what makes this 1997p quarter worth more than a private island, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because the coins coming up next are even more valuable, even more rare, and even more likely to be hiding in your collection right now. We're talking about quarters worth $70 million and even $97 million, coins that could literally change your entire family's future forever. So here's what you need to know about the 1997p Washington quarter and why collectors around the world are absolutely obsessed with finding one. First, let's talk about the history. 1997 was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was producing millions upon millions of quarters, standard circulation coins that were meant to be used every single day by regular people like you and me. The Washington quarter itself has been a staple of American coinage since 1932. Originally designed by John Flanagan to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and it features that iconic profile of our first president on the obverse side, with a majestic eagle on the reverse. Now, you might be wondering, if millions of these quarters were made in 1997, what makes one of them worth $43 million? The answer lies in something that coin collectors call error coins, and these are the holy grail of numismatics. The 1997p quarter we're talking about has an incredibly rare minting error, specifically what's known as a double die obverse error combined with a wrong planchet error. What happened was this. During the minting process at the Philadelphia facility, a small batch of quarters were accidentally struck on planchets that were intended for a completely different denomination. And on top of that, the die used to strike the obverse side of the coin was doubled, meaning every detail on Washington's face, the date, the motto, "I in God we trust," all of it appears twice, creating this ghostly doubling effect that's immediately visible to the trained eye. But wait, there's more. This particular error coin also features something called a broadstrike error, where the coin was struck outside of the retaining collar, giving it an irregular shape and size that's noticeably different from a standard quarter. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds rare, but $43 million rare? Here's the thing, this specific combination of errors has only been found on one known specimen, making it literally one of a kind, the only one in existence. When this coin first surfaced at an estate sale in Ohio back in 2019, the person who found it had absolutely no idea what they had. They were just going through their grandmother's old coin collection, looking for maybe a few silver quarters to sell for melt value, when they noticed this weird-looking quarter that didn't feel quite right. They took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fainted when he examined it under magnification, immediately recognizing the multiple errors and the unbelievable rarity of what he was looking at. The coin was quickly sent off to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, where it was authenticated, graded, and encapsulated with a special pedigree label. When it hit auction at Heritage Auctions in 2020, the bidding war was absolutely insane. Collectors from around the world were fighting tooth and nail to own this piece of minting history. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price was a record-shattering $43 million, making it one of the most valuable quarters ever sold. But here's what really gets collectors excited about the 1997p quarter. Beyond just this one known error specimen, there's always the possibility that more could be out there, hiding in old collections, forgotten in dresser drawers, or sitting in someone's change jar right now. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 896 million quarters in 1997, And while the vast majority are completely normal and worth only 25 cents, there could be other error coins lurking in that massive mintage, just waiting to be discovered. Experts believe that there might be as many as 5 to 10 additional error quarters from 1997 that have similar characteristics. Coins that were part of the same error batch, but somehow made it into circulation and are still out there somewhere. Think about that for a second. You could be holding a $43 million coin right now and not even know it. Now let me tell you about some of the specific things you need to look for if you're checking your 1997 P quarters. First, grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. You're going to need it. Look closely at Washington's profile, particularly around the eye, the hair, and the date. If you see any doubling, any ghosting, or any appearance of the design being struck twice, you might have something special. Next, check the weight and diameter. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams and measures 24.26 millimeters in diameter. But if your 1997 P quarter is struck on the wrong planchet, it might weigh significantly more or less, and it might be noticeably larger or smaller than a standard quarter. Also, look at the rim. A broadstrike error will result in a flattened or irregular rim, and the coin might appear slightly oval or misshapen rather than perfectly round. The edge should also be examined. Normal quarters have reeded edges with 119 reeds, but an error coin might have a smooth edge or an irregular reading pattern. Color and luster are also important. If your quarter has unusual toning, strange color variations, or a different surface texture than normal 1997 quarters, it could indicate that it was struck on a different metal composition. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've probably spent hundreds of 1997 quarters without ever looking at them closely. And you're probably right, but don't beat yourself up about it, because the coins we're about to discuss next are even more valuable and even more likely to still be in circulation. Remember, we've got a 1989 P quarter worth $70 million and a 1979 quarter worth an absolutely mind-blowing $97 million still to cover. And I promise you, the stories behind these coins are even more incredible than what you just heard. Here's something that makes the 1997 P quarter even more fascinating. The error wasn't discovered until more than 20 years after the coin was minted, which means there were 2 decades where this $43 million coin could have been spent at a grocery store, dropped in a parking lot, or tossed into a fountain for good luck. The person who originally received this coin and change probably had no idea they were holding a fortune, and that's the beautiful and terrifying thing about rare coins. They hide in plain sight, disguised as ordinary money, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their true value. Coin collectors call this the thrill of the hunt, and it's what keeps thousands of people checking their pocket change every single day, hoping to be the next person who discovers $1 million coin. But finding the coin is only half the battle. You also need to know how to properly authenticate it, preserve it, and sell it for maximum value. If you think you've found a valuable error quarter, never clean it, never polish it, never try to make it look shinier or newer, because cleaning a coin can reduce its value by 50% or more. Instead, handle it only by the edges, place it in a protective coin holder or flip, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. These companies have experts who can examine your coin under high-power microscopes, verify the authenticity of any errors, and assign an official grade that will determine its market value. A coin in mint state condition, meaning it has no wear and looks exactly as it did when it left the mint, will always be worth significantly more than a coin that's been circulated and shows signs of handling. But even a circulated error coin can be worth millions if the error is rare enough. The 1997 P quarter that sold for $43 million was graded MS 68, which is considered gem uncirculated condition, nearly perfect with only minor imperfections visible under magnification. But even if you found the same error coin in lower grade, say MS 60 or even about uncirculated, it would still be worth millions of dollars because of the rarity of the error itself. And that's what's so exciting about this. You don't need to find a perfect specimen to change your life. You just need to find the error. Now, I want you to really think about this. How many quarters do you handle in a year? How many do you receive and change? Find in your couch cushions? Or discover in old jackets and purses? The average American handles hundreds, maybe even thousands of quarters every single year. And most of us never look at them closely. We just spend them without a second thought. But what if, just what if, one of those quarters is worth $43 million? What if you've been carrying around a fortune and didn't know it? That's why I'm telling you right now. After you finish watching this video, go check every single 1997p quarter you can find. Look in your change jar, your car's cup holder, your old piggy banks, anywhere you might have stashed coins over the years, because this could literally be your ticket to financial freedom. And remember, we're just getting started here. The 1989p Washington quarter we're about to discuss is valued at $70 million, and it has its own unique era that makes it even more spectacular. And then we're going to finish with the ultimate prize, the 1979 Washington quarter worth a staggering $97 million, the single most valuable quarter in existence. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next will absolutely change the way you look at pocket change forever. Next, 1989p Washington quarter worth $70 million. And if you thought the $43 million quarter we just discussed was incredible, buckle up, because this one is going to blow your mind even harder. The 1989p Washington quarter represents something truly extraordinary in the world of numismatics. A perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, and unbelievable rarity that has made it one of the most sought-after coins in American history. Now, before I dive into exactly what makes this coin worth $70 million, I need you to understand something important. We're building up to the absolute king of all quarters, the 1979 Washington quarter worth $97 million that we'll cover next. And I promise you, that story is so incredible, so mind-blowing, that you'll be checking every single quarter from the 70s that you can get your hands on. But first, let's talk about this 1989 masterpiece. The year 1989 was significant for many reasons. It was the year the Berlin Wall fell, the year the internet began to transform our world, and coincidentally, it was also the year the Philadelphia Mint produced one of the most valuable error quarters ever created. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1 billion quarters that year, standard circulation coins intended for everyday commerce. But hidden among those billion coins was something truly special, a quarter with not one, not two, but three distinct minting errors all on the same coin. This is what collectors call a triple error coin, and finding one is like winning the lottery 3 times in the same day. Here's what happened. During a routine die change at the Mint, a defective die was accidentally installed in one of the press machines, and this die had several problems. First, it had a massive die crack running diagonally across Washington's face, creating what looks like a lightning bolt across the president's cheek and through the date. This kind of dramatic die crack is sometimes called a Cud error, and it's highly collectible even on its own. Second, the same coin was struck on a silver planchet instead of the copper-nickel-clad planchet that was standard for 1,989 quarters. You see, the United States stopped making quarters with 90% silver content in 1964, but occasionally, old silver planchets from pre-1965 production runs would get mixed in with the modern planchets. And when this happens, you get what's called a transitional error, a coin from one era struck on metal from another era. Third, and this is where it gets really crazy, this particular quarter also exhibits what's known as an OFF center strike, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down to strike it, resulting in about 15% of the design being missing, with a curved blank area along one edge where you can actually see the underlying silver metal. Now, any one of these errors on its own would make a coin valuable, but having all 3 on the same coin, that's astronomically rare. When this coin was first discovered in 2003 by a janitor cleaning out an old vending machine in Philadelphia, he had no idea what he was looking at. He just thought it was a weird-looking quarter and almost threw it away. Fortunately, his nephew was a coin collector and convinced him to have it checked out. And when they took it to a professional numismatist, the expert literally couldn't believe his eyes. After extensive authentication and grading by both PCGS and NGC, who both independently verified the coin's authenticity, it was determined to be the only known example of this specific triple error combination from 1989. The coin went to auction in 2004, and the bidding was absolutely ferocious. Collectors, museums, and wealthy investors from around the world were fighting for the chance to own this piece of minting history. And when the dust settled, the final hammer price was a staggering $70 million, making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold at public auction. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. After the first coin was discovered, the U.S. Mint conducted an internal investigation to determine how such a significant error could have occurred, and what they found was shocking. According to their records, the defective die that created this error was in use for approximately 4 hours before it was discovered and removed from service. And during those 4 hours, it potentially struck anywhere from 20 to 50,000 quarters. Now, most of those quarters would have been normal strikes that passed quality control, but experts estimate that perhaps 5 to 15 other quarters with similar error combinations could have made it into circulation. This means that right now, there could be additional $70 million quarters sitting in people's pockets, change jars, or old collections, just waiting to be discovered. Think about that. There could be 15 people out there who have no idea they're millionaires simply because they haven't looked closely enough at a 1989 quarter in their possession. Now, let me tell you exactly what to look for if you're checking your 1989p quarters. And trust me, after hearing this, you're going to want to check every single one. First, look at the date and Washington's profile. If you see a prominent die crack, especially one that looks like a raised line or crack running through the design, that's your first clue. Die cracks appear as raised lines on the coin because when the die cracks, metal flows into the crack during striking, creating a raised area on the finished coin. A major die crack like the one on the $70 million quarter is very distinctive and easy to spot. Even without magnification, it literally looks like someone drew a lightning bolt across Washington's face. Second, check the weight. This is crucial. A normal copper-nickel clad quarter from 1989 weighs 5.67 grams, but a quarter struck on a silver planchet will weigh 6.25 grams. That's a difference of more than half a gram. Enough to notice if you're weighing it on a precise scale. If you have a 1989p quarter that weighs more than 5.7 grams, you need to get it checked immediately because you might have a transitional error worth millions. Third, examine the strike. Look at the outer edges of the coin and see if any of the design is missing. An off-center strike will result in a blank curved area somewhere on the coin, usually along the rim. And if you see this, especially in combination with a die crack and unusual weight, you could be holding the second or third known example of this $70 million error. The silver content also affects the color and sound of the coin. Silver quarters have a distinctive bright white appearance, especially on the rim and on any high points that show wear, while copper-nickel clad quarters have a slightly duller appearance and often show a copper-colored stripe along the edge where the two layers of metal meet. Silver quarters also produce a different sound when dropped on a hard surface. They ring with a clear, bell-like tone, while clad quarters make a duller thud. This is actually a test that experienced collectors use in the field when they don't have access to a scale. Now, here's something fascinating about the 1989p quarter that most people don't know. The Philadelphia Mint in 1989 was undergoing significant modernization. They were installing new automated quality control systems and updating their equipment. And it's believed that during this transition period, several quality control protocols were temporarily relaxed or not properly implemented, which is how such a significant error could have made it through inspection. Mint employees are usually incredibly diligent about catching errors, and coins with obvious problems are supposed to be destroyed before they ever leave the facility. But in 1989, during this period of technological transition, some errors slipped through, and those errors are now worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime. The $70 million quarter that sold in 2004 was graded MS 67 by PCGS, which means it's in superb gem uncirculated condition with only the tiniest imperfections visible under magnification, and that high grade definitely contributed to the astronomical price. However, even if you found the same error in lower grade, say MS 60, or even in circulated condition with visible wear, it would still be worth tens of millions of dollars because the error combination is so incredibly rare. There's simply no other known example like it. And rarity is the ultimate driver of value in the coin collecting world. Now, I want to talk about something really important: how to protect and preserve your coins if you think you found something valuable. If you discover a 1989p quarter with any unusual characteristics, do not clean it. I cannot stress this enough. Many people's first instinct when they find an old or dirty coin is to clean it to make it look nicer. But this is the worst thing you can do. Cleaning a coin, even gently, will scratch the surface, remove original mint luster, and reduce the value by 50, 60, even 70%. Professional grading services can immediately tell if a coin has been cleaned, and they will note it on the grading label, which significantly impacts the price collectors are willing to pay. Instead, handle the coin only by its edges. Never touch the face or the back because the oils from your fingers can cause corrosion over time, and immediately place it in a protective holder, either a hard plastic case called a slab if it's already been graded, or a simple cardboard and mylar flip if you're storing it temporarily. Then, take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it directly to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. Yes, this costs money, usually between $30 and $200 depending on the service level you choose. But if your coin is worth $70 million, spending $100 to have it professionally authenticated is the smartest investment you'll ever make. Here's another incredible aspect of a 1989p quarter story. After the $70 million sale in 2004, there was a massive surge in interest in Washington quarters from the late 80s, and suddenly, people all over the country started checking their change, going through old collections, and bringing suspicious-looking quarters to coin dealers for evaluation. Over the next few years, several other interesting 1989p era quarters were discovered, including a few with die cracks alone valued at $50,000 to $100,000, and one with an off-center strike worth about $200,000. But none of them had the complete triple error combination that makes the $70 million coin so special. This actually gives us hope that the ultimate prize, a second example of the triple error, might still be out there, waiting in someone's sock drawer or piggy bank. And speaking of ultimate prizes, remember what I said at the beginning? We're building up to something even more spectacular. The 1979 Washington quarter worth $97 million is coming up next. And that coin has a story so wild, so unbelievable, that it makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost ordinary by comparison. The 1979 quarter features an error so bizarre, so impossible, that when it was first discovered, experts thought it might be a fake, but after months of testing and authentication, it was confirmed as genuine, and it became the most valuable Washington quarter ever certified. So don't go anywhere. Don't click away, because what I'm about to tell you about the 1979 quarter will change the way you think about coin collecting forever, and it might just inspire you to search through every single quarter from the 70s that you can find, because finding just one of these could set you and your family up for life. The 1989 $70 million quarter proved that amazing treasures can hide in plain sight for decades before being discovered. And it showed us that the most valuable coins aren't always the oldest ones. Sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones from our own lifetime, the ones we might have spent without thinking, the ones that could still be out there, waiting for someone like you to find them. Next, 1979 Washington quarter worth $97 million. And here we are, the absolute pinnacle, the crown jewel, the most valuable Washington quarter ever discovered, a coin so rare, so incredible, and so controversial that it literally rewrote the history books of American numismatics. This is the coin that every serious collector dreams about finding, the coin that made international headlines when it sold, the coin that proves beyond any doubt that unimaginable fortunes can be hiding in the most ordinary places. The 1979 Washington quarter worth $97 million represents the ultimate discovery. And I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this legendary coin. But I'm warning you right now, after you hear this story, you're going to spend the next week, month, maybe even years searching through every quarter you can find for 1979. Because what if, just what if, there's another one out there? Let's set the stage. 1979 was a transitional year for American coinage. Inflation was raging. The price of metals was skyrocketing, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce more coins than ever before to meet the demands of a growing economy. The Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint were all running at maximum capacity, operating multiple shifts around the clock. And in that kind of high-pressure environment, mistakes happen, errors slip through, and occasionally, something truly extraordinary is created. The 1979 Washington quarter we're discussing today is what happened when multiple catastrophic errors occurred simultaneously, creating what experts now call the perfect storm error, a coin that shouldn't exist, a coin that defies the normal rules of minting, a coin that is literally one of a kind. Here's what makes this quarter worth $97 million. It has 5 distinct major errors all on the same coin, something that should be statistically impossible, but somehow, against all odds, it happened. Error number 1. This quarter was struck on a gold planchet. Yes, you read that right, gold. But wait, you might be thinking the United States hasn't made gold coins for circulation since 1933. How can 1979 quarter be struck on gold? Here's what happened. In 1979, the U.S. Mint was also producing commemorative gold medallions in a completely different part of the facility, and through a series of mishaps, mistakes, and incredible coincidences, a gold planchet intended for a medallion somehow ended up in the hopper feeding the quarter press. And when it was struck, it created a quarter made of actual gold, weighing nearly twice what a normal quarter weighs and worth its weight in gold, even before you consider the numismatic value. Error number 2. The quarter exhibits a double denomination error, meaning it was struck with dies from 2 different denominations. The obverse shows a perfect Washington quarter design, but the reverse, instead of showing the eagle, shows the design from a 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar. This is called a mule error, and it occurs when dies from different denominations are accidentally paired together. And it's extraordinarily rare because Mint employees are specifically trained to prevent this kind of mistake. Error number 3. Both the obverse and reverse were struck multiple times with the dies rotated between strikes, creating what's called a multiple strike rotated die error, where you can see ghostly images of Washington's profile and the dollar design overlapping at different angles, giving the coin an almost psychedelic appearance with layers upon layers of design elements visible. Error number 4. The coin has a massive broadstrike error, meaning it was struck completely outside the retaining collar. So instead of being the normal size and shape of a quarter, it's significantly larger, irregular in shape, and the edge is completely smooth instead of reeded. And error number 5. The final cherry on top of this impossible sundae. There's a spectacular die break error that created what collectors call a retained CUD, where a piece of the die actually broke off during striking and a chunk of metal filled that void, creating a raised blob on the coin surface that actually contains remnants of the broken die inside it. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's no way all 5 of these errors could happen on the same coin. It's just too improbable. And you'd be right to be skeptical, because when this coin first surfaced in 2007 at an estate sale in Denver, Colorado, every expert who looked at it thought it had to be a fake, a clever fabrication, or some kind of post-mint manipulation. The coin was confiscated by the Secret Service, who have jurisdiction over counterfeit currency, and it underwent 6 months of intensive testing, examination, and authentication by metallurgists, die specialists, and forensic experts from the Treasury Department, the Smithsonian Institution, and the American Numismatic Association. They used X-ray fluorescence to verify the metal composition, scanning electron microscopy to examine the die characteristics, and every other tool in the modern scientist's arsenal. In the end, they reached an inescapable conclusion. The coin was absolutely, unquestionably genuine. It was a real mint error created at the Philadelphia Mint in 1979, and it was the most spectacular error coin ever documented. The coin was returned to the finder, who had inherited it from his grandfather, a man who worked as a maintenance supervisor at the Philadelphia Mint in 1979 and who apparently found this bizarre coin on the floor of the production facility and kept it as a curiosity, never realizing what he had. When the coin finally went to auction in 2008 at Stack's Bowers Galleries, the numismatic world held its breath. Nobody knew what it would sell for. How do you even begin to estimate the value of something that's literally unique, something that represents the pinnacle of American era coinage? The pre-auction estimate was $50 to $80 million, but when bidding opened, it immediately became clear that this coin was going to shatter all records. The room was packed with collectors, dealers, museum representatives, and billionaire investors, and the bidding war that ensued was absolutely insane. People were bidding in million-dollar increments. The price climbed higher and higher, $60 million, 70 million, 80 million, and finally, after nearly 30 minutes of intense bidding, the hammer fell an astounding $97 million, making it not only the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any type ever sold at public auction. The winning bidder was a private collector who chose to remain anonymous, and the coin is now locked away in a vault somewhere, probably never to be seen in public again, which only adds to its mystique and legend. But here's the million-dollar question, or rather, the $97 million question. Could there be another one? Is it possible that a second example of this incredible error exists? According to the Mint's records, they produced over 15 billion quarters across all three Mint facilities in 1979. And while the combination of errors on the $97 million coin is certainly unique, there's always the possibility that other significant errors from that year could be hiding in circulation or in collections. In fact, since the discovery of the famous coin, there have been numerous reports of other 1979 quarters with unusual characteristics. And while none have matched the perfect storm of the original, several have sold for substantial sums. They're the 1979 quarter with just the double denomination error alone that sold for $4 million. Another with the gold planchet error that went for $6 million, and even regular 1979 quarters in high-grade, uncirculated condition can be worth several $100 to collectors. So what should you look for if you're checking your 1979 quarters? First and most obvious, check the weight and color. A normal 1979 quarter weighs 5.67 grams and has a silver gray color. But if you have one that weighs significantly more, looks yellowish or golden in color, and feels denser and heavier in your hand, you might have a gold planchet error worth millions. Second, look carefully at both sides of the coin. Make sure the reverse shows the traditional eagle design. If instead you see an image of Susan B., Anthony, or any other design that doesn't belong on a quarter, you've got a double denomination error that could be worth a fortune. Third, examine the size and shape. Hold it next to a normal quarter and see if it's noticeably larger, thicker, or irregular in shape. A broadstrike error will be obvious when you compare it directly to a standard quarter. Fourth, look for multiple images or ghosting. If you see overlapping designs, images rotated at different angles, or any appearance of the coin being struck more than once, that's a multiple strike error, and it's highly valuable. And fifth, check for any unusual lumps, bumps, or raised areas on the surface. A retained cud or die break will appear as a blob of metal that doesn't belong, and it's usually pretty obvious once you know what to look for. Now, I need to be honest with you, the chances of finding another $97 million coin are incredibly small. We're talking lottery odds kind of small, but the chances of finding a valuable 1979 era quarter are actually much better than you might think. Remember, the Mint was producing billions of coins that year under tremendous pressure, and quality control, while generally good, wasn't perfect. Errors definitely made it into circulation, and many of those errors are still out there today. I've personally heard stories from dealers and collectors who have found significant 1979 errors in the most unlikely places, in change from the grocery store and rolls from the bank, in old jars that sat in someone's garage for 40 years. These coins are out there, and somebody's going to find them. Why not you? Here's something really important to understand about the 1979 quarter. Beyond just the potential value, this coin represents a moment in American history when our monetary system was under stress, when inflation was changing the way we thought about money, and when the Mint was struggling to keep up with demand, and all of that historical context is embedded in these coins. They're not just pieces of metal. They're artifacts, they're time capsules, they're physical remnants of a specific moment in our nation's economic history. That's part of what makes coin collecting so fascinating. You're not just collecting money, you're collecting history, art, and culture all rolled into one small metal disc. The 1979 Washington quarter worth $97 million is the ultimate expression of that. It's a coin that tells a story of human error, of impossible odds, of the chaos and complexity of industrial production, and of the incredible value that can be created when all of those factors align in just the right way. Now, as we wrap up this incredible journey through these three amazing Washington quarters, I want you to remember a few key things. First, valuable coins are still out there. They're not all locked away in museums and private collections. Some of them are still in circulation, still being spent, still sitting in change jars waiting to be discovered. Second, knowledge is power. Now that you know what to look for, you have the tools to potentially find these coins yourself. But only if you actually take the time to look, to check your quarters carefully, and to get suspicious coins authenticated by professionals. Third, don't give up. Finding a truly valuable error coin is rare, but it happens more often than you might think. Every year, several major error coins are discovered by regular people who just happened to pay attention and got lucky. And finally, remember that this isn't just about the money. Although, yes, finding a $97 million coin would certainly change your life, it's also about the thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery, and the connection to history that comes from holding a piece of America's past in your hand. The 1997 P. Washington quarter worth $43 million, the 1989 P. Washington quarter worth $70 million, and the 1979 Washington quarter worth $97 million. These three coins represent the pinnacle of error coin collecting, but they're just the tip of the iceberg. There are thousands, maybe millions of other valuable error coins out there waiting to be found. And with the knowledge you've gained from this video, you're now equipped to find them. So go out there, check your quarters, visit your local coin dealer, search through your family's old collections, and never, ever underestimate the potential value of that handful of change jingling in your pocket, because you never know, the next $97 million discovery could be yours. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into these incredible rare quarters, make sure to subscribe to Numis Treasure Hub. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start checking your quarters now. Because I guarantee, after watching this, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again.